the meantime, though, we do want to keep this story going, trying to make sense of it. And that was the news that we got now, 15 minutes ago. According to Reuters reporter David Shepardson, that the NTSB confirming it has recovered both black boxes from American Airlines Flight 5342. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. We also still have our live pictures there outside of Reagan Airport. So in the meantime, we do want to talk about what those black boxes, the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, may tell investigators as they now have recovered them and will be looking into what they contain here. In the meantime, though, we do want to bring into the conversation another guest here, an aviation industry expert. That's, of course, Captain Rusty Amer. He joins me. Captain Amer, thanks for being with us here. I know we've spoken before, but this is such a horrible set of circumstances to discuss here. I want to start with the news, though, that the black boxes have been recovered tonight. Is that a sliver of good news in this investigation?
Yes, absolutely, Andrew. It's good news always to recover the data and voice recorders. Having them work, that's a different question. In a severe crash like this, I hope that we can extract data from them. But the good thing, another good thing with this particular crash, there's never a good thing with it, but is that we do have all the data from air traffic control speaking with both aircraft. So that helps the NTSB investigators quite a bit.
Yeah, you know, Rusty, I wanted to ask too, if you were a member of the NTSB, where do you start? Do you start in the air traffic control tower at Reagan? We can get into that. Do you start with the flight paths of the American Airlines regional jet and the Black Hawk helicopter? Where do you start here, or do you take it all in unison comprehensively as one?
Latter. You have all the information. The more information you have, the better you can come out to an answer why this happened. Again, fortunately, we do have all the air traffic data. We have the NTSB data that comes from both aircraft into the computers. So that information should give them quite a bit of leeway into solving this tragedy, obviously. But we've always known that this particular air traffic in D.C. is probably the busiest, most restrictive and challenging airspace in the world. Some of us that has been around for a while have been forecasting something bad going on because our system is extremely overtasked. And so far we've been lucky because both the pilots and the air traffic controllers are literally performing miracles every day with this congested airspace that we have.
I want to talk, though, about Reagan Airport specifically. Is it too small? Is the airfield too small for the amount of traffic that comes through it each and every day? This is the most restricted airspace in the country, and the heavy volume of air traffic that comes into it on a day-to-day basis. What do you make of that? Is that a contradiction?
It is, ironically. As you know, for example, a lot of politicians love this airport because of its proximity to their work, coming from various places around the country, coming directly. Everybody wants to fly out of DCA. And this airport was designed for DC 3 days and 4 tri-motors days. It is the smallest airport we have and most amount of traffic at one time. The runways are situated in a crazy way, crisscrossing each other, making things a lot harder than an airport that was designed for a future. You know, we haven't built an airport in almost 40 years. The last one was Denver International. We need airports and concrete badly. I know there's no real estate available in the DC area. But, we could perhaps reclaim some land on the river and build a proper airport. And you were absolutely correct that this airport is way too small for the traffic that it handles. And then you add the helicopter traffic that is incredible in that area, crisscrossing the river. We call that the helicopter alley. Between military, the news,
Yeah.
the uh, every other helicopter that rides out there, there must be at least 400 or 500 traffic helicopters crossing that river in a day.
So echoing my point here, Chad Pergram spoke with North Dakota Republican Senator Kevin Cramer. Kramer said this: whenever I'm at Reagan and I see new gates being built, the terminal getting larger, realizing that there will never be another inch of runway and that the skies are pretty congested, I often think there's too much activity for this small plot of land, and I'm sure there'll be a reevaluation of all of that. I want to move, though, from the tarmac at Reagan to the air traffic control tower. We heard a lot today about the qualifications it takes to be an air traffic control tower controller. There was a New York Times report, and this was confirmed by the Associated Press earlier today, that specific air traffic control tower was staffing at not normal capacity, according to an internal report by the FAA that suggested the controller on duty during the late night accident was doing a job usually handled by two people. He was doing the job both for helicopter air traffic and commercial plane air traffic into Reagan here. What does it take to be one of these air traffic control tower operators? Can you offer something on that? Because their qualifications, their pedigree right now is being questioned by President Trump of the United States. What can you say on that?
Well, the worst thing we could do is to politicize this, number one. These air traffic controllers, I can tell you, they truly, especially someone at Reagan or JFK or LAX, these guys are on top of their game to be able to be accepted to a place like this. These are probably the most trained, the most apt air traffic controllers we can get, and they perform. I think this fella was doing this disservice to himself by doing the two people's job. And we're always short of good air traffic controllers around the country, especially these places where we really need them badly. That's why I keep saying these guys are performing miracles. To be a good air traffic controller, I equate that to somebody that is blindfolded and is juggling sharp knives, 5 or 6 of them. That's how they do such a great job. And to say that this guy didn't do his job is truly a tragedy on its own.
And of course, we have this live picture there outside of the Family Crisis Center set up by American Airlines. You know, the new Transportation Secretary, Rusty Sean Duffy, he said these aircraft were flying in standard flight patterns. And I wanted to ask you, should these training flights be done this close to Reagan? What does it mean when you say a standard flight pattern?
Well, I make a simple analogy. You're on a freeway, you're traveling at 75, 80 miles an hour, and someone decides to cross the freeway on a bike or walk across. He or she should be able to keep themselves from getting run over by cars that are going that fast. So the traffic into Reagan by commercial jetliner, as you can see on these tapes that are available, it's studied. It's one after another, minimum distance away from each other, and having these helicopters crisscross that is in my estimation, it's very dangerous. Basically, mixing two different thing in aviation, it could be dangerous. And usually most of these helicopters, they fly very low to the ground because they're under the flight path. If you ever decide to cross a freeway, I hope that you have enough sense to go under the freeway if there is an overpass than to actually walk over the freeway. And this is unfortunately what this helicopter was doing. It was too close to the worst case scenario, and at a night, clear night like this, with strong winds, possibly some turbulence, it's very hard to see, and there's so much distraction on the ground. Helicopters are flying low, but somehow this fella mistook somebody else with the traffic that he was pointed out to.
Yeah, we're just watching this collision. It was caught on an Earth camera there. You see the Lincoln Memorial in the foreground. Fox has some new reporting as well, Rusty, and I want to get your reaction on it. They say the night before this collision took place, a jet that tried to land at the same airport had to circle around and make another approach after another helicopter approached its flight path. So just the very night before, as we are reporting, it could have been avoided, and it could have happened the night before, but it did not. But a similar situation, obviously not a collision there, but too close for comfort, right? This is the night
Absolutely.
before.
Absolutely.
So what
This
needs to be
happens
done?
routinely. This happens routinely, Andrew, in all over the place. In every airport, every major airport, we have too many close calls. Yes, we do have very good technology that prevents most of them, but in this particular case, unfortunately, the TCAS that we depend on, the traffic avoidance, collision avoidance system, did not work because at a certain altitude, you don't want distraction for the pilots that are about to touch down. So that warning from the TCAS is silenced. So it didn't help them. And this particular type of approach, which is called circle to land, that adds another layer of complication to this approach. It's extremely demanding approach. Those fellas in the jet, in the PSA jet, they were extremely busy trying to make that final turn, last minute turn into the opposing runway, because they were actually making an approach to a different runway. And once they acquire the runway 33, which is the shortest runway, they start turning towards it. And they have to be very cognizant to do everything perfectly. By the way, that traffic that you see taking off above the accident aircraft, I have a feeling that the helicopter probably thought that was the one that was pointed out to them.
Oh, wow. You know, I want to talk about the FAA. An acting FAA administrator was not in place while this occurred. President Trump announced an acting FAA administrator today, a 20-year veteran of the agency, his name, Chris Rocheleau. The fact that there was not a lead at the top of the FAA at the time of this, are we looking too much into that, or could it have had an impact on this? Obviously, it's a new administration transitioning in from an old one here, a new president. They bring their own people in. But the FAA itself, are they equipped to handle something like this?
You know, they are, but unfortunately, they're always up against budget cuts, and they can't hire enough controllers. It takes 10, 15 years to become a level one, the upper end of being a traffic controller in a place like DC. That fellow that was handling the approach and the landing at the tower, he's probably one of the best there is at FAA. And having a new FAA administrator, that's not the problem. The problem is system-wide. We're always short of qualified as they retire. We can't replace them fast enough.
Rusty, you're just a wealth of knowledge here. And I just got to ask, we're going to go out to some of our reporters soon in Wichita. I learned that once upon a time, Wichita was known as the air capital of the world. And for aviation enthusiasts like yourself, I would imagine you've been to Wichita. Can't imagine how the air community there is dealing with a crash of this magnitude. But for passengers, for flyers, for Americans who are already scared to fly for whatever reason, for those who have trips booked on American Airlines flights, what would you tell them going forward?
I tell them that look at the safety record. Even though we had the best safety record in 15, 16 years, uh, only one fatality, by the way, in the entire time. It was a person that got sucked out of the window of a Southwest jet. But we've had the best safety record. If you compare that to, let's say, your time travel on the highway, we still have the safest system possible anywhere on Earth. Unfortunately, accident like this, we call that in aviation Swiss cheese holes lining up. And that's what happened in this particular case. The system usually works perfectly. All those close cars that you hear about, that's actually system working perfectly.
Okay.
That's why there's never, so I, I guarantee people that are concerned, including my own wife, she says, I don't want to fly anymore.
Yeah.
I say, no, we have highly qualified pilots, highly qualified flight attendants, highly qualified mechanics, and ATC, air traffic controllers, and they're doing their best.
But is it going to take is that reputation going to take a dent after
It
this
is,
crash?
unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I understand. I understand concerns of people, and this is a widely sought problem or accident. Everybody's going to talk about it.
yeah.
But in general, we have an incredibly safe system, even though it's stretched to its limits.
Okay.
But again, 99.9% of the time, the system actually works as it's designed. We just need to build more airports, better runway configurations, instead of, trying to go to Mars. We need those airports. I mean, we can go to Mars. I have no problem with that. But let's build some proper, you go to any third world country, they have these beautiful, massive airports with proper runways that are far apart from each other, long runways, beautiful in condition. Look at, if you ever can find the taxi chart in Reagan, they have these crazy runways intersecting each other which is crazy. It makes things a lot harder for everybody. But still, we managed to survive and do a great job.
All right, Rusty Amer, we're going to have to leave it at that. Thanks for going along with us. Appreciate your insight. We'll talk soon.